Megan. How are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Now, you've been here a little over a year with the Community Development Department. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you ended up in our wonderful city, a little about your professional career.
So I started my career in planning. I worked with the planning department for the city of Los Angeles, and I really enjoyed doing that, but I wanted to be more involved in helping redevelop the city, so I ended up working for the redevelopment agency, and I worked in the harbor area by the LA port, and it was a great job, and then redevelopment was eliminated. And so I decided that I was interested in going to another jurisdiction outside the state to see how planning and development operated in a different state. So I actually ended up going back to my home state of Michigan, and I worked for the city of Flint. I was the planning and development director there, and one of the things I'm really proud of is we developed the city's first master plan since 1960. So
Great.
It was really quite an accomplishment, and we did a lot with blight and code enforcement. And then I always wanted to come back to California. I promised my husband that we would only be there for a few years. And when I saw the job in Salinas, I was really excited because it mirrored a lot what I was doing in Flint. And I really love the work of community development, which is not only includes planning, but includes building and safety and code enforcement and housing and redevelopment work. So I was so excited to see the position, and then I got to learn more about Salinas and I've always loved Monterey County, and I think it's a great place to be. So I was excited to have the opportunity to move to Monterey County.
Right. So did you know a lot about our city before you actually applied for the job?
I knew a little bit. I had visited, and also I had the opportunity to research a little bit, and I found out about the economic development element and how exciting that was and the work that was being done. And I'm really passionate about economic development. I think it's one of the most important things city can have, and so the opportunity to work on that really appealed to me.
So give us your impressions now that you've been here a year, you know, both as a resident and as a professional in our city.
I really like Salinas. The people are amazing. There's a lot of diversity. You know, the Latino culture is really great. I like it a lot, and my husband is Latino, so I have interest in the culture. There's just the farm culture combined with the urban culture is just fascinating to me. It's so unique. There are very few places like Salinas, and it's just a beautiful city. I enjoy recreating and, you know, going to restaurants and living in the city, and yeah, you know, I just can't say enough. I actually was surprised at how much I would enjoy living in the city after many years living in Los Angeles, which is a lot faster paced. But I think Salinas is just a really great place. Well, and the staff is just amazing. We have an amazing staff.
Right. So you've had some challenges when you came into this new department that was undergoing some changes itself. So maybe you can kind of describe some of those challenges and where you're headed with, you know, the operations of the permit center and code enforcement and some of the other, you know, responsibilities you have as a department director.
Yeah, I think it's easy, especially in California where it's highly regulated, to have a culture of, no, you can't do this, or you know, it's difficult to overcome barriers. So one of the things I've tried to do is to really be more proactive and teach staff to be a little bit more proactive and think about, okay, we know where people want to go, we know the outcomes that they want to achieve, and we know that that's a good outcome for the city, so how do we you know, do what we can to make it the most direct and easy way of getting something approved. So that's a focus that we've really looked at in our department. We have a permit center coordination group that not only incorporates our department but includes fire and engineering, and we try to talk through issues and how we can improve customer service and how we can shorten our approval timelines. And then in addition, we're really promoting the Development Review Committee, which not only do we discuss projects collectively together and how to get them through the process, but we have slots for applicants to come in and meet with, not just permit center or my department, but fire and engineering as well. And slowly we're getting a lot more appointments from businesses. So I think those kind of things have definitely helped. We've focused on customer service training and how we can improve customer service. Some of these started before I came, you know, creating a new lobby and having coffee and just some of the training, but we have continued it. And of course, I'm really always open to hearing from the development community. We occasionally get complaints, and that's fine because that helps me really see how we can improve services, how we can take the lessons learned when we haven't been as successful as we like and apply it to make the permit center better. We also took a real critical look at code enforcement when I first started. We were about 2 to 3 months behind when people complained, and we really reorganized the whole division. Partially, we hired a full-time clerk, admin support person who does a lot of the paperwork that code enforcement officers were doing, and now that allows code enforcement officers to be back on the street, and we're able to basically deal with complaints within 48 hours. So we've made tremendous progress, and we're looking at doing some expanded services in code enforcement and coordinating more effectively with police and fire to address nuisance properties. And also we've gotten tremendous support from the legal department, who's really helped us a lot. And then of course, you know, getting these great planning efforts and focusing on some of those things that we can do to transform the city.
Well, let's talk about some of those. Now, one of the historical projects that has been around some time and has a lot of history to it, particularly for the Chinese community and other Asian American groups, is Chinatown. And there was a 2010 rebound plan, I think, that was developed when redevelopment was still, you know, available as a tool. And now you're undertaking sort of an update of that plan, as I understand it. Can you talk a little bit more about what that would entail, the scope, and what you are trying to achieve with the plan?
Yeah, so there has been tremendous planning done for Chinatown, but circumstances have changed and the plans haven't been effectuated. And so we're actually taking a look at the old plans, looking at the current conditions, and figuring it out how we can actually transform and really redevelop Chinatown, not just have a plan to do it, but to actually implement. And so we're figuring out ways that we can do projects immediately. Particularly, I think there's so much focus on homelessness, which is a big part of the plan. I do think that some of the cultural significance of Chinatown has gotten lost. And so we're really intent on working with the various Asian communities to highlight the culture and make sure that the cultural piece is really part of Chinatown. And I think there's also a lot of people don't realize how many permanent residents that we have in Chinatown, that there has been significant development by the county housing authority. Thus far, we have 140 units and probably about 600 or more residents in Chinatown just through these housing developments, and 50 more on the way. So we're really looking at ways that we can improve Chinatown for the residents, and then finally really addressing homelessness by housing people, not just coping with homelessness or managing homelessness, but the solution to homelessness is helping people transition into homes. So we are working with a nonprofit consultant to help us look at ways to house the homeless, and we're looking at a pilot project to focus on housing 20 chronically homeless individuals as a pilot, and then kind of replicating what we've learned to continue to house more and more to address homelessness in Chinatown.
And that will be reflected in the plan specifically, right?
Yep.
And you're trying to, as much as you can, interact with the community,
yes,
and have them engaged in terms of the planning effort. How is that being presented and carried out?
Yeah, so we actually have a technical advisory committee or steering committee made up of various different stakeholders that include the long-term stakeholders of Chinatown, the Asian cultural experience, the Buddhist temple, the Confucius Church. We also have the homeless service providers. We have the County Housing Authority on there.
Wow.
So Asian cultural experience, various folks who are helping actually direct the development of the plan, and we're very excited. We have residents too who are participating, and in addition to the larger group, we have some working groups that are focusing on special topic areas in the plan, including issues like housing, the business community, which is often not really seen, but a really important community, the cultural aspect of Chinatown. So we have, I think, 20 to 35 individuals that have already committed to being on either the technical advisory group or a working group. So.
Right. So on the homelessness issue, the city helped sponsor, actually led the sponsorship and creation of a health center, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is that working out? And what does that, what services do they provide out of that health center?
Yeah, it's working out really well. And basically, they provide case management services, medical services, and basic hygiene services. So there are bathrooms and showers, and it's really helping individuals maintain their health, their physical health. And I think one of the things that people don't realize is that there's some percentage of homeless that actually hold jobs. So, showering is really important to kind of that economic link into helping them eventually get housed. So it's a really critical component within Chinatown.
Is there enough alignment and coordination with the service providers, both from perhaps from the county's level, social and health services, with nonprofits? Are they starting to really gel together, as part of the solution to get people into housing once they are able to make, an assessment and do some case management work?
Yeah, I think when we first started, there maybe wasn't as much communication between the various stakeholders in the county, and we are really focusing on pulling that together and coordinating services, ultimately so people can get off the streets, and looking at sources of funding available, because there are some resources that might be available, for example, for veterans. There are a lot more housing resources available for veterans, so we really shouldn't have very many homeless veterans. So that's something that we're looking at coordinating better, and ultimately helping get people off the streets. And also, we've been focusing on establishing a housing pipeline so that there are housing supplies. That's always a big challenge, that there's not a lot of affordable housing in the city. So that's one thing we're also working together on. So I think it's hard, because I think there's some service gaps in the city, not because no one wants to do it, but just because there's not a lot of resources. So I think we're really working with the county and the other stakeholders to determine where those gaps are and seeing how we can fill those gaps. And again, really refocusing on housing the homeless, not just managing it, but housing the homeless. That's one of the things that we're all trying to kind of shift towards, and that was very much, I think, in the Lead Me Home plan that needs to be, updated. But I think we need to kind of focus on that next.
Right. That Lead Me Home plan is the sort of county-wide effort that was done at least 6 or 7 years ago, correct?
Right,
to
exactly.
Sort of make a plan that, at least tries to address homelessness through coordination and various different kinds of service applications.
Exactly. And I think it's, again, times have changed, sources of funding have changed. It's time to relook at it and see what we need to do to change it and make sure it gets implemented, because there's great ideas, great plans about addressing homelessness, but for whatever reason they haven't been fully implemented. And so in Chinatown, for example, we've seen homelessness continue to grow, and actually citywide we've seen it grow. So we have to try to do something more coordinated, more focused to house people, so we actually start seeing the numbers move downward.
Well, it's quite a challenge to take historic Chinatown, revive that, and sort of create a renaissance, and then within that also address the homelessness issue. So this is quite different in terms of maybe other communities, but can probably serve, once you get the plan done, maybe as a starting point or model.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're tackling a lot, and I applaud the city for being really ambitious and taking it on. Most cities would shy away and just try to do a little bit, but I think it's necessary, and I think if we're successful, it'll be a model nationwide, because I believe if we're very focused, targeted, it's a 9-block area, I think we can really make changes. And of course, one of the big things that we're hoping to see off the ground is the Mid-Penn housing project, which would be 90 units that would help house the very most vulnerable population, including the homeless. So it's a tremendous project, very attractive, mixed-use building. So the applications will go in, and we hope to know in June if it was awarded tax credits. If not, they have more opportunities to keep reapplying, and we're a committed partner to seeing that project move forward.
That sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
Now, when will the planning effort be done, Megan?
We anticipate it'll be about 18 months. So we just started really getting underway in January. So probably by next June, we'll have a plan. And like I said, we're all about implementation now. So we're going to get information and data as we're doing the plan that will enable us to start doing some things, particularly around the homeless issue. We're not waiting on that. We're going to be doing piloting probably in the next 6 months on trying to house 20 homeless in Chinatown.
So you have an LSL vibrancy plan that you're working on. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we're really excited because there are a lot of challenges, but there's a tremendous opportunity. There's a vibrancy that exists in the LSL that I think sometimes goes unnoticed among people outside of Salinas or even within the city of Salinas. It's one of the most highest producing areas in terms of economics, in terms of sales tax revenue. There's huge numbers of populations, lots of young people who are very passionate about the city and committed to seeing its development. So we are just, again, underway. We intend to have a very inclusive planning process. We've established, again, a technical advisory committee, which is helping us really develop a comprehensive community engagement strategy. We're also starting to look at the LSL marketplace. Again, there was a plan, and how do we activate that plan, move the transfer station so we can see that project move forward. We're participating on the public safety development for the building, and we're really excited to participate in that because that's a real opportunity. Again, there's things that are already happening in the Alisal that we're already kind of implementing as we're planning. And then another piece of the vibrancy plan that's great is that Public Works received a Caltrans grant to look at the Alisal, the street, and how to make it a complete street with bikes and, you know, vibrant street. And so we're able to incorporate that into the planning process. And there'll be some money for design. And we're really looking forward to all of the opportunities. But I think the Alisal, I mean, it's a tremendous, like I said, although it's challenged and we have to focus on the challenges of, you know, the poverty rates, the overcrowding, I think it also is just tremendous opportunity because there is such a unique character that doesn't really exist in other parts of the city that we really can play up upon in the plan itself, like the arts community and the murals and things of that nature. So if we can work together and figure out how to fund these things, I think we can really create kind of similar to what has taken place in San Diego and Barrio Logan, how they've just transformed it into a very vibrant place. I think something similar can happen in the Alisal.
So what do you see just initially as some possible outcomes, you know, not to sort of predict or prejudge this, but you probably have a pretty good idea of what, you know, the characteristics of the east side of the Alisal, what may be needed, and often in the planning process you are hearing from the community sort of either reaffirming that or creating something new that needs to be addressed or needs to be expanded in a positive way.
Yeah, I think the things that we're really hearing the focus in the Alisal is youth programming and community spaces, community centers, the need for those kind of services really strongly, and a feeling that there's a connection between really supporting youth and helping address the public safety issues. And I think also just neighborhood building, you know, how we can connect neighborhoods, make places feel safe, not just through enforcement, but other types of community activities, maybe community policing as well. And then housing is a huge thing that we're hearing, the need for more affordable housing and how we can address overcrowding in a positive way without displacing people. How can we be sensitive to those issues? And then, you know, just again unleashing the creativity and allowing, I think, residents to really define what makes the Alisal. And I think the plan is a great way to ensure that the voices of the residents are really heard and documented in a plan, and we're able to then carry out the will of the residents.
Right.
We are actually, we have enlisted the help of El Pájaro CDC to start providing business support to largely businesses in the Alisal. We're looking at...
Tell us about that organization. What do they specialize in? What do they bring to the table?
Great question. They started in Watsonville, and they started working with predominantly Latino and Spanish-speaking businesses. They have their bicultural, bilingual nonprofit, and helping to grow kind of the mom-and-pop businesses. They actually purchased property in pretty large facility in Watsonville and created a big commercial kitchen. And they have a variety of small businesses that come in and actually are able to use the commercial kitchen to grow their businesses, including several businesses in Salinas. So they started to branch out into Salinas, and we're trying to grow their footprint to help more businesses, and that's one interest. We're exploring the possibility of, is there demand enough to create a commercial kitchen in the city of Salinas? So that's one thing that we're looking at right now. But one of their, I can't remember the name, but one of the cool businesses that work in the commercial kitchen is they started preparing nopales, which is a cactus, the type of food that's very delicious in Mexican food, but other countries use it as well, and they actually help kind of prepare and slice it so that someone can buy kind of fresh nopales from various different grocery stores, but they don't have to, take off the spikes and everything. And they've grown and grown and grown, and they almost have outgrown the commercial kitchen site, and they employ I think 12 people, and it started off with just one individual. So those are the kind of successes that they've had, and we'd like to see more of that brought to Salinas. So they are continuing to grow, and like I said, they're also helping us look at the Tynan Village development and see if we can bring a commercial enterprise to kind of complete the ground floor of Tynan Village.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, really good.
Is the reaction by the community groups that are established already in the Alisal, has that been very positive, and are they getting on board, help with the stakeholders groups and the meetings? And
absolutely. We are very excited. We have partnered with various different groups that are working in the Alisal, COPA, BHE, Building Healthy Communities, MILPA. We're working with CHISPA and the Urban Arts Collaborative. I know I'm forgetting a lot of organizations, but they're already part of our technical advisory group, and they are very on board, and they've been helping us really ensure that we have a great community engagement process, and they're helping us to establish the steering committee and identify members who would want to serve on the steering committee. And BHC, for example, is a partner on the Caltrans grant, and they'll have ambassadors who will help us really with all of these outreach events. And we've already done some training, even though the weather was not the best. Last week on Friday and Saturday, we actually, people showed up, almost very little very little no-shows, but we had a facilitation training, and many of the people in the Alisal and Chinatown received training so that they can help us facilitate.
In the middle of a storm.
Yes, in the middle of a storm. So yeah, we didn't even have full lighting at Sherwood on Saturday, but they still came, and it was a great training.
So you'll be providing updates probably through the web and other communication and social media, so that people know and they're kept abreast of the development of the plan and whatever information it's actually producing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be using a variety of methods, websites, social media, and some more non-traditional methods like church bulletins, schools, and other things to let people know what's going on, and also to encourage participation, because although we'll have these steering committees, we'll also have a lot of community meetings where we want to get people's feedback into the process.